Okay, and it's 9 o'clock, and I'll call the meeting of the neighbors of Dunn County to order. And the roll, I see Supervisor Bjork is here, and on Zoom we have,
everybody is here. So Supervisor Keeter, everybody is here. We have Supervisor Keeter, Supervisor Breslin, and Supervisor Witzel on Zoom, as well as Chris Anderson and Jane Hansen.
welcome distant folk.
Thanks.
Okay, approval of minutes is next up. You've had a chance to peruse them. Would someone like to move to accept them?
I so move.
I have Supervisor Bjork and Supervisor Breslin moving and seconding. Any discussion, changes?
I just had a question. When Scott talked about the express employees to be Dunn County employees, were those the same people? And was it 2 or 3 or how many?
It's the same people, and we currently have 2.
Okay.
Any other questions? Then all in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
All right.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Coralie, I didn't hear you.
Aye.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure you're hearing us and we're hearing you.
Yep.
Okay, minutes are approved. Was there any public comment written or
No,
nobody's here?
well, Dr. Brown is here.
Oh. Dr. Brown, did you want to make any public comments?
No.
Okay,
Fun to listen to.
okay. Well, that was the spot we're at. So you came in at the right time. Okay, and item 5, the request of the chair was nothing.
Mhm.
And number 6, now you get to talk.
Thank you. All right, to start, as always, we have Quality Assurance Steering Committee updates. So we met 2 weeks ago now, and
Steve, why don't you just join us up here? We're a small group and the rest of the people are online.
I'm doing fine. Yeah, I don't hear real well. So.
Thank you, Chris. Good idea.
So everything went as usual this month. We did have everyone there, which is sometimes a challenge as there's about 10 plus people on that committee. So it's sometimes a challenge with vacations and things like that. So it was nice. We had the whole group there. We went over our pharmacy reports this month and there was no concerns. As well as we had our corporate compliance report, which also there was no concerns. Is there any questions for quality assurance?
Supervisor Keeter?
No.
Okay,
Okay.
B, let's go on to B.
Chris, I believe, is on and give the employment activity report.
Morning. So can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so for the employment report for January, the recruitment was basically the same as always. I did send out a mass email. You can buy the list from Headmaster, which is the company that manages the Wisconsin Certified Nursing Assistant registration, basically, and you can choose like a radius and you can buy an email list. So I did a mass email for that. If we go down to direct hire interviews was 5, agency interviews 14, positions offered 5, positions accepted 4, and 2 resignations in the month of January. One was for a CNA that didn't return from a educational leave, and one was for a homemaker that just didn't return any contact. So that kind of tweaked our open positions accordingly. Leave of absences remained about the same. And then work comp, we had no lost time injuries. And then we skipped down to missed shifts due to COVID issues, 35 or roughly 315 hours, which also includes agency staff. Anybody have any questions on?
Supervisor Bjork.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On a day like today, or any other weather issue, if someone can't make their shift, how does it show up on the employment activity?
It really wouldn't.
Okay. Because I mean, it isn't lot work for comp or anything like that. It's just.
No,
No.
no, we only specify on here the work comp loss hours and the COVID loss hours, as COVID was a request to be added a few years ago. So, but we don't put just the general call-ins on this form.
Then would you ask that employee to come in and do another shift later on to make up for the one they missed, or how do you handle that?
If they will, we can ask people to do that. If they call in, they could use vacation day hours to make up their hours for their paycheck purposes, but people typically are picking up shifts and things like that anyways, so they'll offer to pick up another shift. When it comes to weather related, we do ask that everyone makes every effort to come in and not just call in because of the weather, and try to get in if possible, because we do have to have staff in the building. And like for this example, we've had a snowstorm going on for almost 48 hours, so we can't have the same staff working that whole time. So we do ask everyone to come in, and for the most part, everyone gets there. People stay. We do have open rooms, so we've offered people to stay at the facility. I believe we had about 15 to 20 people stay over the last couple of days to make sure that they're safe.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
All right, next is a CNA training program question that we have normally. So I added it to the agenda this month per Supervisor Kinnear's request. We have not gotten any new news on this, which is not surprising. Things at the state do take quite a bit of time. I'm still working with the woman from the company that is working to contract in to have the internal, as that seems to be the easier route for everybody, as they do have trainers already in a program already. It's just getting our space approved is where we're currently stuck. Just because of some changes in the state's eyes of what is an acceptable training location. We honestly thought this was going to be the easiest part since this had already been used as a training location. But they have changed some of the requirements as it's technically in a licensed area. So some of their concern is that if we decide to open Arrowhead, the training would be done right next to resident rooms. And they think that that's not acceptable for resident environment to have a classroom within their household. So we're trying to make an effort to show that we can have them go in and out of the door that's right there, because there's a door right next to the classroom, and that they wouldn't be walking through resident household areas. As of right now, we don't have residents down there, so it wouldn't be a problem now. But to actually have it certified, they want us to say it's not going to be a problem if we do open, since those are still licensed beds.
I kind of wonder if that would have been a good thing to ask Senator Staffsold about, to say, hey, this is something you can look into to make things a little easier.
We could, I can contact him and ask him about that if he'd have any say. I don't know if they would have control over DHS's interpretation, but it wouldn't hurt to ask.
It wouldn't hurt to ask, and something he could consider in the
Mhm.
future, but
Sure.
you seem to have a good relationship with him.
Yeah.
Okay. While you're talking about rooms, first off, anybody, are you done with the?
Yeah.
CNA? I'm not, but anybody else have any questions with it?
No.
Um,
Nope, they're
no,
all shaking
Okay,
their heads.
I don't know if this is the time, but you were talking about the use of the
Mhm.
empty space there. And people have asked me about use of that space
Okay.
since it's empty, so I wanted to bring it up so that it could be
Sure.
publicly answered. They wondered if the two households could be used to house a pool staff.
So currently they cannot, for temporary safety purposes, we've allowed it. We would have to look into decertifying the beds, would be part of that, as well as if we had more of like an apartment setup, So like assisted livings have done this because they have kitchens and things like that in the households or in the rooms. So we only have a bathroom and a bed. So they would have to share a communal kitchen. That's not considered the acceptable living standards for per the agency, which I find interesting because the hotels they stay in don't have that either, but that's been kind of the concern for the communal living setting. I do know some facilities have used their assisted livings to do so because they're more of a private living apartment kind of setup versus a nursing home room. But I don't believe any nursing homes have done that.
Okay, thank you. And the other question I've gotten about the empty beds is,
Mhm.
boy, they really need a lot of places for psych. So could it eventually be changed into a psychiatric ward permanently, I would assume, but
Mhm. So that has been something that has been brought up in the past. Actually, Chris and I were both on a committee that talked about this. That was probably 4 years ago now, about critical access, like crisis center and using part of the neighbors for that. To do that, we would have to I believe, I don't know for a fact, but to do that, I would think we would actually have to turn an entire building into that. So close another household, as our building is not set up for safety precautions, to have psychiatric residents in the same building because we don't have the same securities across the, to like close off a full unit. It also is a licensure thing, which we would have to apply for psych licensure, as well as the staffing of that would be the other issue, is that psychiatric care requires more staff than nursing home care does. And we already are struggling to find enough for what we have, let alone increasing to additional staffing.
okay, thank you. And
Mhm.
it doesn't surprise me that you guys talked about that.
Mhm.
4 years ago, you
Yeah.
said?
Yeah, about 4.
Okay. Okay, those are a couple of questions that I had heard from folk, and it's good that it's out here now too.
I think
Uh,
Supervisor Keeter was gonna say something.
Supervisor Keeter, did you have a question?
Okay.
Okay,
No, I'm sorry.
okay. Then let's move on to
Resident referral?
D.
Okay. Resident referral report is also in your packet. We started out the month with 96 residents. We had 103 referrals, so we're still sitting above 100 referrals, but it has decreased a little bit from probably about a year ago. We were at about 150 referrals a month. So I'm not sure if that is more people going home or what the whole situation is with that, because I do know that many nursing homes are not accepting due to staffing. So I'm not 100% sure why that has gone down, but we're still having way more referrals than we're able to take in. We admitted 6 residents this month and we ended the month with a 97 census. Or we did not admit 97 residents. We ended the month with 98 as our census. We had 0 residents transferred to another facility. We had 2 deaths this month and we had 4 discharges. Our referral sources have stayed the same. Our primary 3 are Sacred Heart and the 2 Mayos, Mayo Menominee and Mayo Eau Claire. You have any questions on referrals? Oh,
Yeah. I have
Supervisor
a
Keeter.
question.
Hmm.
Chairman.
Go ahead.
I was wondering if when you accept somebody, is ability to pay one of the criteria that you use to decide who you accept from this, $100 people who are eligible?
yeah, so if we have if we have an open room that we are able to admit to, it depends kind of on who's currently being referred to us. So the 100 people don't sit in a pool because they'll end up going somewhere else. But if we have 3 open referrals at a time, for example, we look at kind of them as a whole picture. So we do look at payer source, but not to be, would we admit if they have one versus the other, just that they have some sort of payer source. So whether that be insurance, we do an we check authorization from their insurance company prior to admission, if they qualify for a Medicare stay, or if they're Medicaid or private pay. We do look into that. We do also, if someone, we know that they need Medicaid, we can assist them with working with the ADRC for getting Medicaid set up as well. But that is one of the factors to make sure that they have some sort of payer source. We do check that prior to them coming. But we also then look at how much they need for skilled care. If they are a 2-person transfer and we have a 1-person transfer and they're being admitted to a place that has a lot of 2-people transfers, we typically take the 1-person transfer, things like that, depending on what our current situation is.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Supervisor Witzel, did you have a question?
No, I didn't.
Okay, can I follow up on Don's question? It seems I remember in the past, the referral activity report would say not is more specific, not accepted
Mhm.
because of insurance that doesn't pay.
Yep.
And there is some insurances that didn't pay well or at all.
Mhm.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense then.
Yeah, the only reason we switched that is that section under reasons not admitted, because we've had such an influx
Yeah,
of referrals. We're not even, if we can't accept, we're not even looking at them. So if we don't have an open bed, we're not looking to see if they have a payer source or if they have these different things, because we don't want to waste the hospital's time or that patient's time reviewing the chart. So we don't really know for a lot of these because we said we don't have an open bed right now.
Right, I was just kind of asking for Don's
Yeah.
benefit too, because this is something that we've seen in the past.
Yep.
but He doesn't get a chance to see.
Yeah, if we ever get back to the point where we can accept a bunch, we will bring the reasons for denying back.
All right then, anything else on D? Then let's move on to environmental facilities report.
So I do not see Scott on our call. But I can give a little bit of an update. Our environmental and facilities team is obviously today very busy with snow removal, but have been for quite some time. We also have had quite a few of our heat pumps have issues again, so they've been busy with that. I do know that Brady for sure, and I'm not sure if Bob, but Brady has been certified for working on the heat pumps. So I believe it was a Freon certification of some sort that he would have to do the work on them, which he has obtained. So now he is working with the gentleman who comes in to do the work, typically is helping him learn how to do it so that we can do it internally instead of contracting that out. Which will save money as well as time. Sometimes it takes the person that comes out to do it several days to get into the facility to fix them, as he is really the only person in our area that is willing to work on our kind of machines. We have tried other people in the past and they don't really like our heating system and don't want to work on them. So we have found one person that will, but sometimes it takes him some time to get there. So it'd be nice to have internal staff that are able to fix them when we have problems arise. I think those are the highlights of what's going on in facilities right now.
Okay, any questions before I ask? Last time, he said that they hired a custodian and they were looking to hire another one.
Yep, we are looking for one more at this point.
Still
So we
looking.
have 2, yes.
Okay. Okay, then let's go on to, oh wait, no, environmental facilities report. Last time we talked about how great it was that it's 0 citations and so forth, and it's a 5-star. And I said, gee, what are we doing to really put that out there? And are we starting to do anything to say, look at this, people, you're coming in and you're coming to a fantastic facility?
I don't think we've done anything quite yet with that, but I know it was brought up about potentially doing some sort of video. And I know I've talked with HR recently about recruiting stuff, and that was one of the ideas, was doing a video that highlighted the facility, and that would be included in it as well.
After looking at the financial report too, it's really important for the public to understand what kind of facility we have, whether they're going to be in it or not.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, F is the Medicaid rate appeals. So I believe we had talked about this either last month or the month before. That Jane had worked on, filing an appeal with Medicaid for our rates for East and West. As we had talked, that the state had been very late at getting rates out, and then they were kind of quickly pushed out. And we believe that there's some errors on our rates based on, our cost report, without getting too in the weeds. But we believe that there is something that was not calculated correctly and that our rates should be different. So we did file an appeal with the state. And then we also did receive letters yesterday, from the state saying that our appeal was received and that, judge and appeals attorney for the state has been decided. So we haven't had a hearing date set yet. But we did contact our financial contact at Leading Age, who actually used to work in Medicaid rate setting for the state. So she knows a lot about it, and contacted her to kind of ask for her assistance in that hearing as well, since neither Jane or I have ever been through this process before, as it's not a very common thing to do. But apparently there are many facilities appealing their rates because most facilities are seeing errors in their rates this year. So, I don't know when that'll be, with a lot of hearings and things like that happening. I don't know the time frame, but we did at least receive contact back from them that they received our appeal, so.
Any questions? Thank you for your patience, Carmen. There's two different things with the state now.
Yeah.
Just waiting and waiting. Well, let's go on to G.
And this will be the third thing we're waiting with the state. So supplement payment, was something that we have talked about numerous times, but that is the payment that, municipality owned or publicly owned nursing homes receive every year to help offset our increased costs compared to private owned nursing homes. So I attended a WAC meeting, which is the Wisconsin Association for County Homes. That was at the very end of January. That basically all we talked about was supplement payment because it affects all of the nursing homes that were in that group, as we are all county nursing homes. We also had the rate setter from the state there, and I felt a little bad for the guy walking into that meeting of very unhappy nursing home administrators, but to ask him questions about the supplement payment and how that all worked, because it didn't come out the way that many of us thought it should come out or thought it would come out. And kind of asked what the process was on that. Is there going to be changes? He basically said that they will not change the first payment, which is what we received in December. They go off the state's fiscal year, so we receive a payment for the first half in December and the second half at the end of June. He said if the rates change and if they do different calculations, that our June payment may be different than what is written on the expected payment sheet. But we wouldn't see anything until then. They will not be changing the first payments, even though they have admitted that there are some things that were incorrect in them. So it's not super helpful, but at least we know that we won't be seeing anything different for that, but it could affect our June payment of supplement payment, as well as our rates changing would also affect that too. So it basically is a big pot of money. I believe it's $31 million, that gets divided between the county-owned nursing homes, but it isn't equally divided or divided by patient days. It is off of our cost reporting and then divided to try to make each nursing home equally whole, basically, which they did not seem to come out that way. The reporting or the spreadsheet that basically said why each nursing home got X amount of dollars said a few nursing homes had actually made true profits, even with all of their for direct patient care, which is almost impossible. It isn't impossible to make a profit overall, but compared to direct patient care profits is not feasible really. And they said that some did. And the nursing home said, we definitely did not. And they said, we are not changing it. So, but hopefully in the next round before they put out the next payments in June that will be adjusted. So, but we did get to speak with Grant, the Medicaid rate setter, and he did listen to what we were all saying and didn't just kind of blow us off. So that was a very productive meeting, I think.
Doesn't look like there are any questions.
Okay. Next is East Complaint Survey. So we did have a complaint survey in the East building. Last week or the week before, I believe. That was a complaint survey that we kind of were expecting coming, as when they were in the central building. For our annual survey, we also had complaint survey attached to that. And when they started asking us some questions about the complaint survey, we realized that they were in the wrong building. So the people they were asking about were the staff and residents that they had mentioned, were actually staff and residents of a different building. So we knew that one was coming a little bit. So they showed up for just a single day survey on an anonymous complaint. They are not able to tell us what the complaint was or what the complainant, who the complainant was. They just ask us questions about the people involved. The surveyor was there all day. She left without any citations, and the complaint was unsubstantiated. So that is the best outcome we can have from a complaint survey. So that all went smoothly. Didn't ask us many questions, which was a little odd. They normally don't ask us much, but I think they talked to Kathy once all day, and she didn't talk to me at all after her entrance conference. So it was a little bit odd for us, because normally they ask us for charts and things like that, which they did not. So don't know.
So is that all good, or is there another shoe that's gonna drop?
That's done. So
Okay.
when they leave for a complaint survey, they tell you unsubstantiated, no citations, or they would tell you substantiated with citations, whatever it might be. So that's the outcome. And then we get what's called a statement of deficiency via email. That basically says, we were in your building on this day, and these are your deficiencies. So we already received that said, we were in your building on this day. There was no deficiencies, unsubstantiated.
Great. Supervisor Bjork has a question.
Who does the complaint survey? I mean, are they Department of Agriculture or Health Department of State, or who?
It's the Department of Quality Assurance, which is a subsection of the Department of Health Services. So it's DHS, but it's DQA, which is part of DHS. So it's our state surveyors.
So are they, are we, the person that does that comes to
Mhm.
check us out? Do they work half the state, or 10 counties, or 5 counties, or? how
There's
does that
different
go?
districts. So we are in the Eau Claire region. I believe there's 4 regions in the entire state. So they are based out of Eau Claire is where ours come from. So those are state surveyors. So they would come on our normal annual surveys, and then complaints. We can also have federal surveyors, which we are out of the Chicago region for that, if we were to have a federal surveyor. Any other questions on the complaint survey?
Doesn't look like it. Let's go to I.
Okay, COVID-19 update. So I don't have a ton of news about COVID-19 updates, but we have still seen positive staff here and there. Fortunately, knock on some wood, we haven't had positive residents in quite some time. The only big change with this is the state of emergency is ending, which we have not really gotten any word of how that affects us, if things are going to change, if testing things are going to change. We do know that as of June 15th, the state will no longer be providing testing supplies for us, or doing the transportation to the testing companies, or paying for the testing companies to do our tests. So that is one thing that we are actively looking into on, is our testing requirements going to change if our testing availability changes, or how we're going to adjust to that if we are responsible for it versus the state paying for it, and kind of going through that process. But we know that that's happening in June, so we are already looking forward to that to see what we will need to do for that as well.
That's a COVID-19 update. Can we do the flu at the same time?
Yes, we still have not had any flu.
That's easy.
Mhm.
Okay, then, one more little thing. It's not on the agenda, but how did the fundraiser go?
Fundraiser went
At Culver's, for the rest of it, that Culver's had.
Yeah, fundraiser went really well. We had $400 raised, which is awesome, for only a couple of hours and fairly limited work for us for a fundraiser, which is really nice. It's advertising it a little bit and some staff came to help, that day to deliver food to tables and stuff. But, besides that, it's a fairly easy fundraiser for us. So we do plan on doing that in the future again.
Who was the lead person to do that?
Alyssa is the one who contacted
name?
Culver's. Alyssa Dowdy.
Thank you very much. I
Yes.
just give credit where credit is
Yes.
due, although other people evidently helped. So
Yes.
thank you.
We also do have another fundraiser coming up, the Bake Ziti sale. I believe, orders were due yesterday, but I'm sure if anyone wants to, we can sneak them in too. So,
Okay, thank you for letting me slip that in
Mhm.
and you slipped that in well. All right,
I've got a question.
yes, Supervisor Witzel.
So how far are we with the fundraiser? Like what percentage has been raised so far?
sure. So that's actually part of one of our action items, but I can talk a little bit about it now. So, we have raised, roughly $55,000, I believe. That's not including that $400 or anything that's been done this year. But that is part of the carry forward, request that's later below. So we are nearing close to, or we have surpassed our halfway point, which in 2023, we did budget for half a bus. So we budgeted $45,000 through the capital improvement project for half a bus to supplement the fundraiser. Until we actually purchase the bus, we are going to continue to fundraise. So if we can get more and more fundraised versus and spend less on the capital side of things, that would be even better. So we're not stopping, even though we've reached technically the halfway goal that we needed to for the bus purchase.
Do you have kind of an idea sort of when you think this might come all together at 100%?
So Scott has been working on the process to bid for a bus right now. There is a state, I don't think it's a grant. I don't know what the actual term is for it, but a program for purchasing transit-like buses. And Scott thinks because we are part of that, we could maybe piggyback off of that to have a bus sooner. Because ordering a bus off of the general market is going to be a slow process. But we're actively working on the actual purchase of the bus, so that hopefully we have it this year.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you Supervisor Witzel. Any other questions?
Last question.
Well, we're talking about it. I suppose we could, huh?
Okay, I got a bus question. Young fella did a nice job for transportation at the county board meeting.
Mhm.
And I asked him the question about a specific training for handicap accessibility in and out of the bus and the securing the wheelchairs and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of had a feeling that he didn't know what he was talking about, but we had somebody that knew how to do it, and then that person told somebody else how to do it. And especially if we move, I don't know what the what they're asking for as far as an electric or conventional bus, whatever, you understand what I'm saying. But I keep hearing that from emergency personnel that wrecker companies and fire departments and stuff like that, that there's a whole new ball game that has to be learned on how you handle an emergency in an electric vehicle.
Hmm.
So 2 things. Number one, I would just be totally surprised that with all the requirements there are for training and safety, that people that transport residents with have handicap or limited mobility, that you would not need some type of certification other than we got a guy that knows how to do it. And if there is something, and if there isn't something, yeah, I would think it's a liability issue for the county, that if you don't know what you're supposed to do as far as securing people in a vehicle, that if there something happens, you can't fall back on the thing that says, well, geez, nobody told me that I was supposed to do this. So I don't want to, stir the pot, but I also don't want the county to be liable for not knowing what they're supposed to do in an emergency. So maybe there isn't a certification, but you can't hardly ride a moped without having certification of some sort.
So just to make clear, you're concerned that they be certified properly so that people are safe, but also for liability. And we're not sure that if certification might change in the future, as you talked about electric buses and other kinds of, okay.
We're probably okay, but you just got done telling me about how we check out for dust under the rug. Well, I think we got to check and make sure the guy knows how to, or person knows how to do what needs to be done for transporting vulnerable people.
I can't speak to transit, but for our transporters, we only have a couple of people that drive the buses for the neighbors. So it's different than the transit. So I can't speak to what they do, but for the neighbors, we do have our therapy department helps with that and making sure that everyone is safe to transport into the buses. So we know that everyone that's getting in them is safe and that the people that are driving those buses know how to do what they're doing. We only have a couple of people that drive the buses.
Right. But
So to be sure,
Supervisor,
I'm sorry, I thought he was done. So to
no,
be,
I'm done.
he
Okay.
yields the floor, Supervisor Witzel.
okay, sorry, Larry. Just to be sure, this is going to be a diesel bus, right? That the neighbors are getting?
I believe our current bus is a gas bus. It is not, I don't know if we would get diesel or gas. I believe currently it's a gas bus.
Okay.
But the size of the bus will remain the same as what we currently have, which is 15 passenger, and I believe it has room for 3 or 4 wheelchairs. We keep it that size because it doesn't require a CDL, and our individuals who are driving it are not CDL
Right.
certified.
Yep, that I know. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if we got too far off the agenda here, but we didn't make
Sorry.
any decisions. No, not you, Supervisor Witzel. I started it, I think. You said,
I know, I chuckled. I chuckled.
Okay. So you said you were gonna talk about it when we did 7A.
Mhm.
So let's go to 7A then, I think.
Okay, perfect. So in your packets, there should be a resolution, that is for, it's in there. This is for carry forwards. So per county policy, or it might be an ordinance, I'm not 100% sure on that. We are required to carry forward any monies that we didn't spend in a certain year that we intend to spend the next year. So this would be for the bus fundraiser money. So we are requesting to carry forward, I believe it's $68,000. And that is to pay, or to carry forward anything that's fundraised between 2021 and 2022. So 2021's was carried forward to 2022. That was $13,000. And then the 55 from 2022 will be carried forward also in a whole lump of $68,000. This is the all money that was fundraised, donated, things like that, with the sole purpose of purchasing the bus. So we want to carry it forward to make sure that gets put into the bus fund.
That sounds like a good plan. Any comments or questions?
Mm.
Do we need to do a vote on this?
I believe it's just an action. I think we need an action, and then not a roll call vote, just a motion and then. yeah.
So I would take a motion and a second to send this on. Does it go?
I'll move.
Yeah, seconded too.
I think Supervisor Breslin and Supervisor Witzel. I think first and second.
Supervisor Kinnear, this is Jane. Can I make one comment before you vote?
Yes, thank you.
The carry forward actually works as a budget adjustment as well. So when the carry forward of this size is approved, you're actually giving permission to spend the money that we fundraised. So as a budgeting perspective, you're giving us permission to spend that money.
And is this all in the same resolution?
Yes.
It's
Okay,
kind of the result of the resolution.
okay,
And then this will go on to be part of the overall carry forward that the county board will vote on in March, I believe. So in March, this will just be added. This is a chunk of the overall
Sure.
carry forward.
okay. Thank you, Jane. And that's good to know. And of course, you would love to be able to buy a bus in 2023, wouldn't you, and spend it? Okay, and does this go to the executive committee next?
Committee on Admin.
Well, just the committee, just the admin departments go to committee on admin this afternoon,
Okay.
but then they'll go to executive.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So we're sending it to who?
Exec.
Okay. So the motion is to approve this and send it to executive committee?
Mhm.
Is that what the first and second understood?
We do now, or at least I do.
And you're okay with it? Okay. Great, then no other comments? All in favor of sending this on with approval?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None, it passes. Thank you. And are we on to 7B then?
Yep.
And that would be Jane. And when I looked at this, I said, wow, new, just like we've been asking for. Or saying, go ahead and do it anyway.
Good morning. So the vouchers are in the packet. Does anybody have any questions on the vouchers?
Doesn't look like it.
No.
Okay. There's quite a bit of, every time we pay a bill to the agency staff, it goes on there. So it goes forever because they each get their own transaction. Then in the packet, we have what I prepared for the number of budgeted days that we had in-house and versus our percent, what we actually had for days, the census review. We did budget the right percentages. We came pretty close on the percentage of Medicare A, Medicaid, and private pay people. It's just that they were equally lower than expected. Our shortfall was 7,533 days of in-house residents. And the non-weighted per day rate of 393, that's a general rate. It incorporates the Medicare and the which is all inclusive, and the Medicaid rate, which is just the room and board. But the shortfall in revenue was $2.9 million because of the shortage of staff, shortage of bed days that we could bill. Any questions or comments on that?
Could I just ask a
Robert?
question, just so I understand the chart?
Mhm.
For example, Medicare A Advantage.
Mhm.
You figured that would pay for 12%? Or I'm not quite sure what
That was
12%?
12% of our census that we budgeted. That was actually 13% of our overall days, in-house days.
Okay, so you budgeted those days, the actual days were 4,800 about. And, okay, okay. And then the non-weighted per day rate, that's the amount that neighbors receives
On
from,
an average
Okay.
daily rate, but Medicare is more like $500 to $600 because it includes all the expenses, like an all-inclusive vacation. The private pay Medicaid is just the room and board. So their therapies, their prescriptions, that is all extra and billed separately,
okay,
a la carte.
okay. So now this is a new way of explaining things to us, isn't it?
It shows the difference, our conversation shows the difference in the rate of each payer source. I mean, the Medicare it includes everything. They come in and their therapies, their prescriptions, their oxygen, that kind of thing is all covered. So the rate is higher. But in the end, it all balances out through these cost reports. And in private pay and Medicaid, it all gets billed separately. We get Medicare B income from any therapy that they might have in-house. Their pharmacy gets billed out to their Med D.
And this is for the entire year?
This is for the 22.
Okay, entire year. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. The aging, I ran just the one December report this time. The outstanding balance of 1.7 million is higher than usual, and that is because the Medicaid rates for Central did come in and were posted to our books, but the money is not collected yet. As of 12/31, they issued the rates and processed those like a couple days before the end of the year. So we're still collecting on that. They did issue interim rates and they issued final rates. So there's two sets of rates to negotiate for Central. East and West have some interim rates that aren't very high in our opinion, and that's why we are appealing both East and West Medicaid rates. But when I run the January year-to-date aging, it's down to 1.5. So we did collect some of that within January. Although to be consistent with finance reporting, we just went through the 12/31 date.
Any questions on aging, anyone? Okay.
And then I'm on paper here. I'm going to go through all the vouchers. It's hard to turn pages when you don't have a left thumb, I've found. Oh, and that did not print. Oh, it's at the very beginning, excuse me. The financial report is for December, up through December 2022. This is your new format, and the revenues and expenses on that first page 104 I have printed, is a consolidation, the top one, and then the next charts are East, West, and Central delineated. But if we look at the revenue and expenses on that first chart, the net is pretty much where I go to. The year-to-date actuals and the projected 1.9 shortfall. That's the cash shortfall. The revenue was 13.8 and the expenses are 15.7, somewhere in there. We're still getting a couple in, so it's always a moving target. But the estimated net shortfall is 1.9. Without depreciation, it's 1.23. That's the actual cash shortfall that we have this year.
So
Let's
just
see.
the first time we've seen this, for the revenue, instead of having it broken out into all those different categories, it's summarized in fewer categories. Is that a fair characterization?
That is correct.
Okay, same thing with the expenses. And now the part that really confuses me. I see down there year-to-date actuals, net without depreciation is 1.23 in the hole. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's in parentheses. Why are the revenues in parentheses on top?
Yeah,
That-
that's
Yep,
Good
that,
question.
Hmm.
that, is a good question, and that's how the Excel spreadsheet was set up. I would recommend, to Beata that we perhaps change that, but, when you're looking at it from two different accounting standpoints, it looks correct. But from a user's point of view, it looks very awkward. So I will talk to Beata and see if we can,
Can I comment?
Yeah, would you please,
Yep.
Chris? Yeah.
Well, it is awkward, or it is confusing. It is set up in terms of how accounting works, and Beata did attempt to change it, but the way because the whole spreadsheet operates the way accounting's supposed to work, she can't change that to make that look different, to show up different. So unfortunately, people are just going to have to get used to the fact that those, that bottom line number in parentheses is a negative. I think she did change, if I recall, she did change that simply to make that that part more understandable. Like when you look at it, a parentheses, a negative is a negative versus
Okay.
it looking like a positive number and it not really being positive.
Okay. Yeah, I mentioned that to her before, and I understand that we're limited by what we're using. But so now, just to make sure, revenues are going to be in parentheses. And expenses are going to be without parentheses, except for the very bottom one, where it's written out for us.
Yes.
right, those are credits and debits. And then at the bottom, the one thing that we can do is put, the net, say without depreciation, and then put in parentheses, loss, the word loss is in parentheses, and then, profit would be, without parentheses. So,
Okay, and that
we-
would
we
be
could-
only for the bottom one.
right, only for the
Okay.
bottom one. The
Okay,
top
as
one
long as-
is more credits and debits. Yep.
Okay. As long as we know the rules on these, and these are all the same now, right? For all the different, yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Can I say an idea? If
Yeah,
it's in the whole, I mean, since these are printed in color for us at least, we could make it red too, if that would just be easier for someone for the end bottom, because that's in the red versus in the black. Just an idea.
Yeah.
now that it's explained to me, I can probably remember it if I write it down. Thank you. Thanks, Jane.
You're welcome. And then in 2023, we won't have the depreciation in there. We didn't budget depreciation, and then we will not, show expense for depreciation either, from what I'm understanding how the forms are created.
Okay. Yeah, now the rest of you, this is brand new. When I looked at it, I thought, wow, yeah, any questions on it? Supervisor Keeter.
I'm always a little confused. Now, this 1.2 in the hole, that's real money, right?
Yes,
That
it
we
is.
lost last year. Now, has to be paid by somebody. Does that come out of the county budget then? Or the general fund?
Chris, would you respond, please?
So when the county when the decision was made to move the debt service for the building of the neighbors and pay that off and zero out those books, the county also assumed then the responsibility that they would cover any overages or any overage would be covered by the county. If it was underspending, then it goes back to the general fund like it did last year. So if you recall last year, NDC returned $1.3 million to the general fund. And if everything holds the way that it is this year, they would essentially, not they would take out, but it would take $1.2 million to cover the loss.
Okay. I have a question. At our last meeting, we received the financial report and that had us in the hole like almost 760,000. This is quite a bit different. Why is that?
The Medicaid rates came in differently, the supplemental payment came in differently. And there are some other end of the year charges that came in. The payments to the agency staff were higher than expected. We paid $5 million in agency staff this year. And a lot of it was almost doubled in December. I talked with department heads and was under the impression that they were all getting paid more timely within their periods, but December did bulk up some. Dietary expense was up as well in December. So there must have been more purchases or end of the year vouchers that are cleaned up. What I see on what we get for billing from other medical facilities, if we send somebody out, we get a lab charge perhaps. They're cleaning up their books too. So anything that we haven't paid, these other purveyors, say dietary department and even agency staff, they're going back for the whole year, cleaning up their books and then finding, oh, we didn't bill you for this. Now we want you to pay. So there were some of those as well.
So if it's, how do I put it? If it's from December and it doesn't get paid or charged until January, February, it gets put on 2022?
Yep, we're still putting things back to 2022.
Okay, and Medicaid rates went up, so that would have helped, wouldn't it?
But
You
we were
mentioned Medicaid rates and supplemental rates, other charges came in. I understand the other charges coming in. Approximately almost 500,000 extra charges from what we thought. But I thought Medicaid rates went up.
The Medicaid rates did go up, but the supplement payment went down. So when the supplement payment went down significantly, that basically ate up the entire Medicaid rates going up. And they did not go up as much as we had predicted.
Okay, so the 500,000 difference between last report and this one is the billing is just catching up to date and charging whatever. Is that
billing
correct?
and the Medicaid. The Medicaid really threw a wrench in our projections. We were projecting that we would get what they told us. And well, basically what they were, promoting, yes. And then the cost reports came back as something unusual too. So yeah, it was a double whammy from Medicaid, which really is most of the story here. And hopefully they agree with our appeal and reimburse us for that.
Okay. And go ahead, Chris.
So if I could just offer a sort of a side comment to this conversation. So Carmen and Jane and Beata and I have been working for a few months, some months now, actually on trying to do some projecting going forward. It is very, very complicated. We started out with Beata taking a serious look at essentially kind of developing a new pro forma for the neighbors for the future. Honestly, I don't know that we have the sophistication to be able to do that. What we do know we can do is we can take a more a pared down version of that, and we can look at trending of expenses. We can look at trending of personnel costs. We could say if our personnel costs go up by X amount each year, what would that mean if our revenue stays at what it is now, if it goes up by 2%, if it goes up by 5%, we can do some of that trending. And so that is the process we're working on. It is a little tedious and goes slowly because we are all trying to figure out, the worst case scenario is we go through all of that work and we come up with garbage numbers and it's not helpful at all. So, we've been meeting on a regular basis to try to do some better projecting, including what happens if you increase the pay of county staff so that we are more attractive as an employer, and perhaps then reduce your pool staff costs, which are infinitely more expensive. But again, all of those are pretty sophisticated calculations. And so we are going slowly and carefully so that we don't make any mistakes.
And who knows, if you paid them exorbitant amounts, you might still not get people, as you've mentioned before. One final question, Jane. Are you able to populate this particular form without having to put them in individually like the old one?
That is true. These come downloaded from our SAP software, and Beata uploads every department pretty much at the same time through her magic Excel and skill. And then each department will look at what's in these, and then the idea is to project. So what the department heads do and what we do with the department heads is look at the projections. Are they right? Are they calculating right? So it's more projection, end of the year based reporting, and not so much a month to month income and expense. Now it's up to the board what you prefer to see. This is what's being put out by finance now. And I know in the past we've done monthly income statements. So this is a change, but what you prefer is what we need to, as finance, provide to you.
Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but this sounds good to me rather than, let's go with it and see what happens. Beata's worked with
Yeah.
it and everybody's put a lot of time in.
And as
Okay.
for January numbers and February, there's not much there to really look at. Because we've paid like our insurances and some big items in January. And so they would need to be projected out by 12 months, of course. And then, so January numbers aren't really a good look at the entire year. But again, it's a change in what you're seeing from last year as far as the format.
Good.
Okay. So we'll go with that form. And then there's a couple more breakouts of these numbers. And I know it's hard to see when it's printed on paper. In the computer, you can make it bigger. The senior meals, and you can tell me if you want these again, or if you don't want these anymore, or if you want something different. But these are breakouts that identify certain areas of the budget and consolidates East, West, and Central. And senior meals is the first one. It shows the expense and the revenue for the year. And then in this one, we have revenues of 162, 172, and then expenses of 139 for a net revenue, which is just the opposite of the prior form we looked at. So that is actually revenue in parentheses of 22,000, but that number does not include overhead. So it's not like we're making money on the senior meals. We are, that's our raw cost for food and labor. Senior meals did well this year. The next items, agency staff and nursing financial report, that includes the agency labor cost plus the nursing cost of our employees that we hired directly. So that was the 10 million mark there. Broken down on the next section is just the agency of the 5 million year-to-date actuals. And if you pop one more down, you've got just the nursing. So you've got the agency staff and nursing of 10 million, agency staff is 5, and nursing staff direct hires are 4.7. So the 2 add up to the 1 above it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, so you can compare, our direct hires were just less than our agency staff. And I think if we take it further as I go through the cost reports and audit process, we'll compare the hours put into each number and see what the general overall cost per hour ends up being. And that might be an interesting number to have at the next meeting or the meeting after that. The depreciation, we can always look at the depreciation, even though it won't be in our profit, our projections in our monthly statements. So in 2022, it shows $618,000 in depreciation. That's what that is. Any questions?
Anybody? Supervisor Bjork.
Well, I like seeing the senior meals in there with, working with the ADCR, and I mean, I think that's a real positive thing that Dunn County does, so let's keep track of it and people have questions about it, we got answers.
Okay.
Yeah, and the rest of them too, Jane, those are interesting. And you can just pull them out. You don't have to do everything by hand now, right?
Right, they magically appear. Mhm.
Well, yeah. Like me.
Oh.
Okay, good. This looks great.
Yeah, and then I go back in and double check, and if anything's out of line, there's all of that review as well that needs to go in there to verify that what we're showing you is truly pulling correctly and accurate.
Good. Anything else?
That is all I have. Well, there's one other little item. As we were working here, I looked at the donations for 2023 so far, and we have $6,800 in donations for the van.
Nice.
In
Huh.
just the
Oh.
month and a half here.
Mm.
That's up to date. That's probably including the very last fundraiser as well.
Cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, is there anything else before we have a motion to accept them? No? I take a motion to accept the vouchers and financial report.
I so move.
That'd be Supervisor Witzel
I'll second.
and Supervisor Keeter. The motion is to accept the vouchers and financial report. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Excellent. Next meeting is?
A month from today. 22nd of March.
23rd of March.
23rd of March. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a Thursday again.
Yep.
And 9 a.m.
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody. Unless any announcements here?
Probably the snow's been plowed the whole time.
Yeah, there we go. So we are adjourned.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks.